Anyway, this sounds like buy heads, right? Like, give them
So,
to a science, give them to a laboratory or something.
well, especially if the
Like,
goat man and or sheep man is here to pick up the heads.
yeah, I think those need to go to a museum, like Indiana Jones.
They belong in the
These
museum.
belong in a museum. All right, welcome everybody to Unraveling the Unexplained. My name is Kat, and I am a longtime astral traveler and spirit consultant. This is my brother John, who's a longtime fan of the creepy and the paranormal.
Hello, folks.
He has picked out a video for me to react to. I don't know what it is, but we are about to find out together. The Hexham Heads.
The Hexham Heads mystery is one of the most intriguing and perplexing tales in modern folklore, blending elements
Why am I a
of
little disappointed?
archaeology, supernatural occurrences, and psychological intrigue. These small carved stone heads, discovered in 1971 in Hexham, Northumberland, have baffled historians, archaeologists, and paranormal enthusiasts for decades. Their origins, purpose, and the strange events surrounding them form a narrative.
Why do I already feel like just some kid who liked to carve stones or something, and like people have made a giant mystery out of it?
Little Timmy back in whatever time was just like, yeah, I like carving heads.
Little Joey was just like,
These are my heads.
exactly. I just like carving things. No mystery. Anyway.
Narrative that continues to captivate the curious and experts alike. The Hexham Heads burst into public consciousness in 1971 when two young boys, Colin and Leslie Robson, unearthed them while playing in their garden in Hexham, Northumberland. These artifacts were roughly the size of tennis balls and exhibited distinct facial features. One head, characterized by a rounded form and simple childlike features, was named the boy head. The other, more angular and slightly more elaborately carved, was referred to as the girl head. Both heads were made from a type of stone common to the area, suggesting they could be of local origin. Excited by their find, the boys showed the heads to their parents, who, equally intrigued, decided to report the discovery to local authorities and experts. When the Hexham Heads were first unearthed, they were immediately intriguing due to their unique carvings and apparent age. The heads exhibited distinct facial features. One was round with simple childlike characteristics, while the other was more angular and detailed. Local historians and archaeologists were the first to examine the heads. The material, a type of sandstone common in the Hexham area, suggested a local origin. The style of the carvings hinted at a primitive form of craftsmanship, leading to speculation that the heads could be ancient, potentially dating back to the Celtic or even Roman periods. Dr. Anne Ross was a distinguished Celtic scholar and archaeologist, became deeply involved in the study of the Hexham Heads. Known for her expertise in ancient Celtic artifacts, Dr. Ross was particularly intrigued by the possibility that the heads could be linked to Celtic traditions. Upon examining the heads, Dr. Ross noted their resemblance to other stone heads found in various parts of Britain, often in areas associated with Celtic heritage. These heads, sometimes referred to as Celtic heads, were thought to serve ritualistic or protective purposes. Dr. Ross hypothesized that the Hexham Heads might have been used in similar ways, possibly as talismans or objects of veneration. Dr. Ross's examination also included a detailed analysis of the carving technique. The crude yet intentional design suggested a symbolic significance rather than mere decorative art. The head's features, with one being more feminine and the other more masculine, could indicate dual representations of deities or protective spirits. While Dr. Ross and other experts leaned towards an ancient origin for the Hexham Heads, not all agreed. The controversy reached a new level in 1978 when Des Craigie, a local man, claimed that he had carved the heads in the 1950s as toys for his daughters. Craigie's assertion introduced a new perspective, suggesting that the heads might be modern creations rather than ancient relics.
My first thought really was that if I tried to carve stone heads, they'd probably look like they were created with primitive technology as well.
Yeah, I'm not exactly an artist myself.
Exactly. If I had tried to carve stone heads, they would probably end up looking like something ancient and crude as well.
It would probably just look like a smiley face roughly chiseled in stone.
Yeah, you'd be lucky if it looked that good.
I'm just, I find it interesting they insist on having one be the boy head, one be the girl head. When I look at those, I'm like, I see nothing about those features that suggest
That's one of those things, and I forget what they specifically call the phenomenon, but it's where when we look at things, we assign meaning and attribute meaning to them based on our own socializations and ideas
Yeah.
rather than the image actually being there. People see, Jesus on a tortilla
Right.
or, turtles in clouds and things like that. Our minds are designed to create associations based on previous experience and knowledge. And so I forget what that's actually called, but it is a thing people do. So
Yeah, I'm just saying, looking at those heads, I couldn't even tell which one was supposed to be which.
I'm not even sure that's a picture of those ones specifically, but because those both look pretty round, whereas they were
Yeah.
talking about different
They had a
shapes.
different picture earlier.
But again, if I was trying to carve multiple stone heads, one might end up a little bit more round while the other one is a little bit more
Yeah,
angular.
you're not going to exactly replicate the exact thing each time.
Yeah, just based on the shape of the rock and whatever I was trying to do. So
Craigie's claim was met with skepticism from some quarters. Critics pointed out that the head's wear and patina seemed consistent with greater age than mere decades. Additionally, the widespread and consistent paranormal phenomena reported by the Robson family and others seemed disproportionate to the idea of simple, recent carvings.
what does that
Beyond the
mean?
initial visual and historical examination, the Hexham Heads underwent more rigorous scientific analysis. Experts in geology confirmed that the sandstone was indeed local to the Hexham area, but determining the exact age of the carvings proved more challenging. Unlike organic materials, stone cannot be dated directly, making it difficult to ascertain when the heads were actually carved. A microscopic examination of the stone revealed tool marks and wear patterns that suggested significant handling and exposure to the elements. These findings were inconclusive but pointed towards a potential age older than a few decades. The Hexham Heads also drew the attention of folklorists, who explored the broader cultural and mythical context of such artifacts. The concept of stone heads imbued with spiritual or protective qualities is deeply rooted in Celtic and pre-Celtic traditions. Folklorists posited that even if the heads were modern, they might have been intentionally created in line with these ancient beliefs, potentially explaining the subsequent paranormal experiences. The reports of strange phenomena, including moving objects and sightings of a bizarre half-man, half-sheep creature named the were-sheep, added a layer of supernatural intrigue.
A
While
were-sheep?
skeptics attributed
new
these
one.
accounts to psychological factors or local folklore, believers saw them as evidence of the head's mystical properties.
I am definitely finding a picture of a were-sheep somewhere for this. A were-sheep.
Where sheep?
Does it stand on hind hooves?
Yeah, I mean, who
When
knows?
it approaches you, is it like...
I can only think of something fluffy that would suit as a pillow.
That's what I mean, is what does a were-sheep look like?
The terrifying were
The
sheep.
terrifying were-sheep. Oh, we're definitely like drawing a picture. I've got to get into Canva and like create a were-sheep somehow for this.
Bah.
Like wild.
Over the next couple of days, strange things started to happen around the house. In the morning, they would find that the heads had been turned around facing the other direction. Sometimes they would find the heads in different rooms of the house. Thinking that maybe it was the two boys moving them around as a joke, they confronted them, to which they said they had never touched the heads. In the coming days, things took a turn for the worst. Glass objects would suddenly shatter with no one near them at the time. Mr. and Mrs. Robson found it harder and harder to explain what was going on. After a few weeks, one of the sons, Colin, woke up screaming in the middle of the night. The screaming awoke Mrs. Robson, who went straight to the bedroom, thinking one of the boys had a bad dream. As she was comforting him, Colin said he was woken by the sensation of someone pulling his hair. Mrs. Robson tried to reassure him by saying it was just a dream, a nightmare. This did little to comfort him, and he was certain it was not a dream. Suddenly, Mrs. Robson felt a strange presence in the room. She turned her head towards the bedroom door, and standing in the doorway was what she could only describe as a humanoid creature covered in fur, with a head that looked like a sheep or a goat. After a brief
Okay.
moment, the creature vanished. What makes this more
So a goat creature is different. Now I'm disappointed.
Yeah, it's not the same as a sheep.
No, like the goat-like thing is that's people have been seeing that for a long, long time. That's not a sheep.
What is the difference between a goat and a sheep?
A goat, I mean, you don't know what a goat and a sheep
Do I look
is?
like I know anything about farm animals? No, I don't actually know for sure what the difference between a goat and a sheep is.
Oh my god.
I know the one is very fluffy and that one has horns, I guess.
We'll find pictures for you. I'll insert them so that people can see this is a goat, this is a sheep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Along with a picture of Elvis, because you need to work on identifying who Elvis is as well.
Do I really?
Yes.
Is it necessary?
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is.
Yeah, that's definitely a goat person. Now I'm disappointed. I was hoping for a sheep. I think the male sheeps actually have horns, which is why they
Aren't they called rams or something?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not a livestock person either, but I
Yeah.
can picture the difference between a goat and a sheep. Anyway, this sounds like buy heads. Right? Like, give them to a science, give them to a laboratory or something.
Well, especially if the
Like-
goat man and or sheep man is here to pick up the heads.
Yeah. I think those need to go to a museum. Like Indiana Jones.
They belong in a
These
museum.
belong in a museum.
Compelling is the fact that their neighbor, the house next door, also had a sighting of a strange-looking humanoid creature, resembling what Mrs. Robson saw on that fateful night. They also said they had been experiencing other strange activity, objects moving by themselves, and their children saying that some invisible force was touching them and pulling their hair, especially when in bed at night. After a few weeks, the Robsons decided they did not want the Heads in the house anymore because the paranormal activity was just getting too much, and they were worried that whatever was in the house could hurt them and their children. So they parted with the Heads, and slowly, their lives returned to normal once again. This made the Robsons believe that whatever it was in the house, it was tied to the Hexham Heads, and they never wanted to see those heads ever again, and the phenomena that came with them. Dr. Anne Ross was a prominent Celtic scholar and archaeologist known for her extensive research and publications on Celtic history, folklore, and artifacts. Dr. Ross first became aware of the Hexham Heads shortly after their discovery by the Robson family in 1971. Intrigued by the possibility that these carved stone heads might be ancient Celtic artifacts, Dr. Ross agreed to take the heads into her home for closer examination. Her goal was to determine their age, origin, and potential cultural significance. However, what began as a scholarly pursuit quickly transformed into a series of eerie and inexplicable events. Around a week after bringing the heads home, Dr. Ross had her first unexplained experience. Dr. Ross was sleeping when suddenly she awoke with a feeling that someone else was in the room. She gazed around the room, and something caught her attention. In the darkness, she could make out a shape, something standing in the shadows. Suddenly, whatever it was, moved towards the bedroom door, and that is when she saw the creature. It was tall, humanoid in form, but was covered in black fur. Then she gasped in disbelief as she realized that whatever this creature was, it had a head of what she could only describe as a wolf. The creature left the room and went down the stairs. Dr. Ross, still in shock, followed the creature. She tracked the creature to the back of the house, where suddenly, the creature vanished. Later, Dr. Ross would recount the experience. It was about 6 feet high, slightly stooping, and it was black against the white door. And it was half animal and half man. The upper part, I would have said, was a wolf, and the lower part was human, and I would have again said that it was covered with a kind of black, very dark fur. It went out and I just saw it clearly, and then it disappeared, and something made me run after it. A thing I wouldn't normally have done, but I felt compelled to run after it. I got out of bed and I ran, and I could hear it going down the stairs, then it disappeared towards the back of the house. A few days later, it would be Dr. Ross's daughter who would have her own sighting. Dr. Ross's husband was in bed with the flu, and his daughter Bernice was walking towards his bedroom with a meal for her father, when suddenly in the hall upstairs, standing in front of her, was a creature. Bernice stood there frozen, when suddenly the creature jumped the banister and was gone. Bernice looked to see if she could see the creature, but there was nothing. The last straw happened a few weeks later, and again, involved their daughter Bernice. Bernice came home from school one day to an empty house. Bernice straight away felt she was not alone. Suddenly, she saw a strange humanoid creature standing at the top of the stairs. All she could do was stand there in fear, and that's when the creature suddenly ran down the stairs, jumped, and then vanished. When Mr. Ross came home, he found his daughter in the front room in hysterics. This was the last straw for Dr. Ross, and she decided to get the heads out of the house as soon as possible. Dr. Ross passed the heads on to staff at the local abbey.
Hot potato heads.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Next.
Seems to consistently be bringing forth a half man, half creature. Like first a
Yeah.
goat, sheep, then wolf.
Well, you can tell, and again, we've talked about this before, that, the way that our socializations will affect how we're interpreting things that we're interacting with, that we're not actually that aren't physically fully present. And so our mind kind of fills in the blanks with whatever is there predominantly in our thought processes. So some people, especially I would imagine if you're heavily Christian, some people might see the goat head person or whatever,
Yeah.
whereas if you're more leaning towards werewolfy stuff, you might see a wolf instead of
Well,
the goat
I
head.
almost wonder if the wolf has some sort of significance to Celtic stuff because the wolf was seen by this Dr. Ross lady who studied Celtic stuff. So
Yeah, so that may well be. And, we've talked before about how objects can be an energy pathway for things to come through.
oh yeah, we had that the Bet sphere a while back.
Yeah, we talked about the Bet sphere. We've talked about it in other videos too. Like, can energies be attached to objects? Yeah. So there can be an energy pathway attached to an object for something to come through. We'll watch through to the end of the video before I totally go into it. But
Okay.
In 1977, the Heads passed into the care of Don Robbins. Don Robbins was quite a controversial character. He was a chemist who dabbled in a range of subjects including earth mysteries relating to magnetic properties of stones and megaliths. He also collaborated with Dr. Ross on their book The Life and Death of a Druid Prince about the Lindau Man bog body. He believed that stone could record events and human emotions. He called this theory the stone tape theory. He believed a lot of ghost sightings are in fact recordings of the past from the built-up energy in stone surroundings. He believed that his theory could be proved with the Hexham Heads. Don Robbins kept the heads until 1978, then passed them on to a man called Frank Hyde. Since then, they have vanished. No one knows who has the heads. Maybe they are in a collection somewhere, and the collector has no clue about the story behind the heads. Or maybe they have been lost again, buried in another person's garden waiting to be discovered. Though the physical whereabouts of the Hexham Heads may be unknown, their legacy endures. As long as the Hexham Heads remain missing, they will continue to hold a place of intrigue in the realm of unexplained phenomena. Their enigmatic disappearance only adds to their mystique. Whether viewed as ancient relics, modern creations, or something in between, the heads continue to fascinate and perplex those who seek to unravel their secrets. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, remember to like and subscribe.
we will definitely do that, and we will link the video in the description. Go give them a thumbs up, show your support. The creators appreciate that, and so do we. Dokely. Well,
I mean, believing that the phenomenon in question did occur, it does seem like it's clearly connected to the heads because it kept happening when being passed on to other people. So you were talking about how objects could be a beacon or gateway of sorts. So
yeah, the terminology I usually use is an energy pathway.
So considering that they were also talking about how in certain like Celtic things, objects like that could be carved as like protective talisman.
Yeah. It's this is the first one we've really done, I think, that where the kind of the old gods come into play. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a long time before times, before the Christianities was everywhere, that people had their own local gods, their own deities, their own protections, their own energies and spirits that they connected to for various kinds of things. And so I don't think it would have been uncommon at all to have talismans or objects connected to the old gods that were used for protection or for guardianship, that kind of thing.
So maybe what you have here are a couple of old protective charms that, when unearthed and kind of examined and held by modern people, ye old spirit of protectiveness kind of started coming through to that beacon, looking around like, oh, am I okay? Are we active again? Am I supposed to be doing my job of doing the protection racket?
Yeah, it's resurfaced and rediscovered and becomes, handled by humans, people adding their energy back to it, curious, looking into it, thinking about it a lot, putting their energy back into those items. very well could have lit up that switch on the spiritual board, right? There's energy coming back through this energy pathway again. The light lights up, right, and pulls the attention of something coming back through.
Yeah, because
So,
regardless of whether or not it was sheep dude or wolf dude, it didn't really do anything overtly hostile or whatever. It was just sort of like, hey, I'm here. I'm kind of checking things out.
yeah, coming back through the line to see what's going on and checking in on things, which is again not uncommon. Human souls that have transitioned can do the same thing, return to places that they were and people that they cared about, to when those energy pathways light up, come back through and check it out and see what's going on.
So it's almost like the equivalent of a very old phone number that you haven't gotten a call from in a long time, suddenly ringing you up and you answer to see what's going on.
Yeah, you've got the tingle of energy on the line again through something, so you go to check it out. I would guess that things that come through and look in that way, a lot of that is the human translation of the vibration. Some people see shadow people, some people see, like cryptid like creatures. It really depends on how your mind fills in the blanks of something that you don't quite understand, something that isn't quite actually physically there, and how the mind creates images so that it's understandable, something that can be viewed and translated.
Yeah.
So, it could have been, especially in that kind of an area, something again 3D reality adjacent, and we've talked about that before. Things like the Fey realms, stuff like that people believed in heavily and had various kinds of guardian or protective deities. So
Yeah. It kind of lines up in my mind.
the other thing that can happen too, again, is it's hard from this video. I don't have a whole lot of context as to, what the people in this scenario really thought and believed beforehand, what kind of people they were outside of just this incident. Sometimes it's possible to discover something like that and then get into our own heads about what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, it's a magical talisman. Maybe it's connected to something bad. Maybe it's connected to some, you know what I mean? I didn't really get that vibe off of this though. They seemed like they were more interested in its potential cultural and scientific, like archaeological,
Yeah.
So it didn't seem to me like the people involved in this scenario were immediately jumped on the evil, but some people do that. They immediately jump on the evil bandwagon. It must be, if it's not a cross, it's demons. Some people are like that, but I didn't get that vibe from these folks. It seemed
Not really, no.
yeah, it seemed very much like they, discovered something they thought might be old and
Like,
thought,
hey, here are some neat stone heads. Let's get them carbon dated or whatever.
right, they thought it might be something of cultural or historical significance, and they didn't seem like they were immediately jumping on the witchcraft bandwagon with it. So
Yeah.
it is possible, if you pour too much fear energy or things like that into it, that what your the subsequent experiences you have after that are actually just attracted to you because you thought that's what was going on. Like, things start to form around the fear energy. That can happen as well. But I didn't get that sense from this was, the family didn't seem that way, and especially the doctor, like the woman who was, literally researching them for archaeological purposes, not predispositioned, I think, to start worrying about ancient demons or anything. So
yeah.
it feels to me like the objects themselves were an old energy pathway to some sort of protective deity or something that people were using it for previously. And when it began to have that human interaction, that human energy poured back into it, it's like the switchboard lit up
Yeah.
on them, and whatever was attached to it came back through to check out what was going on.
And who knows, maybe after a while it just kind of stopped paying attention to it, because the disappearance of the heads,
Mm-hmm.
one could view that as mysterious, or it could be just as simple as somebody collected them then kind of forgot about them, stuck them in their attic or whatever, and like, okay, yeah, weird stone heads.
And you do get the people who immediately jump to evil conclusions. And while it went through a couple of iterations of being in the hands of people who were interested for scientific purposes or research purposes with the items, eventually having it fall into the hands of somebody who was like, nope,
Yeah.
nope, and went and threw them in a river, or went and, buried them with a nail in the coffin. Somebody who got rid of it because of the phenomena or the experiences,
Right.
or whatever, just buried them and left them back to antiquity, so where they couldn't be evil or whatever.
Another possibility, yeah.
And then sometimes, like, when people pass on, like the inheriting folks don't know what something is, or have, you know, just boxes in the attic that belong to somebody, right?
Those Hexham Heads could just be sitting in somebody's garage, and with nobody really paying attention to them, the spiritual switchboard went back off.
Right. It's same as having it buried out in the yard somewhere, as if it's buried in great grandpa's trunk in the attic somewhere. You know, it doesn't have the same energy being poured into it. It's a lost object again, basically.
Just two weird stone heads in a box somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe they resurface again at some point, maybe not. But I don't, again, I, like you pointed out correctly, is that there wasn't really anything evil or dangerous happening.
Yeah. A few basic poltergeisty stuff, and the appearance of a humanoid beast creature that could have easily just been literally an ancient protective spirit or whatever, popping up to be like, hey, does anybody here need protection?
Yeah, and it strikes me too that the only occurrence there that would have been like a no to me is the grabbing of hair, the pulling on your hair. That I draw the line, don't touch me, is one of my big rules.
Yeah.
Working with the other side. Like, you can get my attention, you can send the energy feelings. A lot of times they'll like shake the bed next to me like that, but no touching. Don't just reach out and touch somebody. We don't do that here in physical reality, right? You would not get somebody's attention by pulling their hair. That's second grade stuff. We don't do that.
You have to teach the spiritual realm about the importance of the personal bubble.
Personal bubble, yeah. We don't, you know, unless you're in kindergarten, you don't get somebody's attention by pulling their hair. We teach our kids not to do that. That's not a cool way of getting attention. So similarly, you know, it's no touching rule, right? There are other ways to come through if you need to say something, or you need help, or whatever you're reaching out for. But it does feel like the one time that happened and the kid was scared and the mom was in the room, and it didn't seem to happen again after that. So it feels like whatever the entity was like, okay, no touching, because this is bad energy coming off of this situation. Child is frightened and crying, you know, and you didn't have the grabbing situation or the pulling hair situation again. So
yeah,
it does. After that, I think what they said is it started to show up visually in the room, like to get the attention of the people there instead.
Yeah.
So to me, that doesn't seem like.
Again,
like
this was not this wasn't
through,
a particularly hostile thing.
No, like the only thing that would have upset me about that situation is the hair pulling. And some of them do
get grabby.
Yeah, they try to touch or pull or whatever to get your attention, and it really isn't intended in a bad way. It's an attempt to make you pay attention or see them. And as long as you lay down the ground rules with that, in most cases, like, nope, I am protected, you don't touch, there are other ways to get my attention, usually that type of activity stops. You see escalations in that type of activity where people become hysterical, scared, angry about it, like that type of thing that adds a negative energy to the situation.
Yeah.
So, but you didn't even have that escalation here.
Yeah, there wasn't really any specific escalation, just kind of a repetitious thing of like spotting a you know, a being. And
that's what kind of leads me to believe that this is an entity that was a personality of previous worship, or someone who has a connection or responsibility to humanity. It's not your typical irritable, depressed, or angry entity coming through who desperately wants attention and is there. That situation, there's an escalation of activity usually, and it's depending on the humans involved, it gets more and more scary or frightening depending on the energy of the people in this situation. You do see escalations of activity like that. This particular case, this entity seemed to have a better control over their energy consumption than that, which is, I guess, the only way I really know how to put that. Not really wanting the negative energy, not really wanting the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
More presence of mind to say, oh, the hair pulling really scared this kid, so we're not going to do that anymore. Like, not wanting that kind of attention, which tells me it's a better formed, better balanced, you know, personality construct, something that plainly has worked with humans before and isn't there just to be an energy vampire, basically. Yeah. So, looks to me like a case of the old gods.
All right, well.
Sound about right?
I mean, that makes sense to me.
All right, let us know what you think. Drop us a comment, like, subscribe, all of that fun-filled stuff. And we will see you guys next time on Unraveling the Unexplained.